Hello, everyone. If you're listening to this today when I'm recording it, it's International Women's Day 2020, and I just want to express how happy I am today to be part of such a beautiful community of women, not just in this small community of mine, but in my Thunder Bay community, in the global community. And so I'm doing my best over here to celebrate and honor the women and the people who identify as women in the world today, and hopefully to continue to do my work towards gender equality. And with that, I couldn't help but notice that Canada's theme for today is Women Inspiring Women. And that's exactly what I intend to do today in this live. If we haven't met yet, I'm Nicole of Nicole Mori Coaching, and I help women prioritize themselves and their needs, and help them to do so in an easy way that doesn't negatively impact all of the other things on their plate, like their businesses and their personal lives. So I'm so glad that you're here. I always love when you make comments or ask questions, whether while we're together live or on the replay. And today, speaking of women who inspire women, I'm so excited to tell you a little bit more about Asha Frost and her brand new book, which is coming out next week. She is a woman who definitely inspires me. And so let's get into it. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Asha and why I'm so excited about her first book that's coming out. So I'll share why I like this book, a little bit about what's in the book, and maybe we'll have some time for me to share a few passages from the book. So if you're attracted by this title, the full title of her book is You Are the Medicine, 13 Moons of Indigenous Wisdom, Ancestral Connection, and Animal Spirit Guidance, then you're going to want to keep listening. So I first met Asha when I invited her on my very first summit when I started this coaching business, which was about 6 years ago now. And she graciously agreed, even though, I was more or less just starting out. And I was just trying to remember the title. It was something about live the life you imagine, reconnect with yourself, others, and nature. And of course, I adored Asha's perspective on everything. And in particular, I was so excited to hear what she had to say about reconnecting with nature, because I knew that was part of her work. And so since then, of course, it was a lovely interview. And then I have stayed connected with her online. I knew this book was coming out, essentially. So here we are today, and I have had the privilege of reading an advance copy, which is why I know what's in the book and can tell you a sneak peek. And she does not disappoint, or rather, everything that I hoped would be in this book, she delivers and more. So, just really quick, just for a really quick background on who Asha is, she is an Indigenous medicine woman who has worked with folks for over 20 years, many who were seeking a deeper connection with earth medicine and Indigenous teachings. So I believe she was professionally trained as a naturopath and then has grown her, I guess it would be in-person business in the beginning. But now, if you check out her website, ashafrost.com, I believe it would be, you can see that she's fully out into the online space and really leaning into her work as a medicine woman, which we'll talk about more. So that essentially is what the book is going to be about, or is about. So let's talk about why I love this book. So first of all, like I said, I know Asha, in terms of knowing her online, that is. I don't know her personally. And I know that she's a wise woman and would have a lot to share. I think that maybe I'm particularly drawn to her work because she is also from Ontario, like I am. And so when she speaks about her Ojibwe culture, I can somewhat relate because being in Ontario and even knowing the strong Ojibwe culture in my region, it was really important to me to learn more about that culture, I guess, because that's where I'm living and growing. And furthermore, I know that, of course, she is a transformational worker like I am. We do different work, of course, but she's in the business of personal growth. So there's that element of the book that I was looking forward to hearing about from her. But for me, so those are kind of the general reasons, but very specifically, there were 2 reasons I was excited for this book, and again, I feel like it's delivered. So for number 1, for me personally, I knew that this book would offer a safe and very wise space to do my own work toward healing, reconciliation, and equity between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people like myself. So what I mean by that is, as Canadians, I believe we all have work to do when it comes to reconciliation, to all move together and to move forward in Canadian society. And so personally, it's really important for me in my lifetime to do this work. And this can all be a difficult subject for so many reasons. And so it's important to me to have incredible sources that I can access to do this growth work. And I see that in Asha, and now I've experienced it in her book. And so that would be the number 1 reason I was excited to read this. And just to add a little bit about what she does cover, definitely that is included in the book, and she does talk about the impact of residential schools, for example, among Indigenous people. Talks about oppression, colonization, appropriation, and racism, for example. And she says in there, perhaps these words will help us walk in reconciliation together. And I really believe that they will help us to do that. So check, she's met that requirement for me. Of course, the other piece that I was very much looking forward to accessing in this book is that she shares some of the power of earth and spirit medicine. So you all know that I really value nature and the wellness benefits therein. And I'm coming to that from a non-Indigenous Canadian perspective. So I was very much excited to hear her Indigenous perspective on some of these elements. When she talks about this whole idea of medicine, the whole book is called You Are the Medicine. What she's talking about is the vital and healing energy that connects each of our spirit, mind, and heart. So it's like that je ne sais quoi within you that makes you you and special, and how you already have everything within you that you need to live your best life. That's not what she says. That's how I'm describing it. And so you all know that that's a number 1 value of mine, is to be true to yourself, to look within yourself, and to use your own wisdom to navigate life. And so certainly she checks this box off for me too. She has so much powerful wisdom in there, and I can't wait for you to read some of it for yourself. I also want to say, in this review, I don't think I'm doing the work justice. She's a beautiful writer, and just the way she is able to get across all of her ideas, whether they're very serious matters, and or whether she's storytelling, she's able to do that in such a beautiful and also in a succinct way. So This is all just one woman's opinion here that I'm sharing with you, but I feel like you're just gonna love the experience of reading her book. And that brings us to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, is kind of give you a little bit of a layout of what the book is like. And I just by fluke I used the term experience of reading her book, but that's because that is what it was to me. It was a beautiful experience reading the book. This is one of those books that I feel like I'm going to be coming back to time and time again, because it's got so much beautiful wisdom, and I've read it through so far, and I plan to go back to so many of the beautiful messages that she has to share in it. So I thought it could be fun for me to tell you a little bit about the framework of the chapters, so you know more about what to expect. So after the introduction, essentially each chapter is about a different moon of the year. So there are 13 moons that she goes through, beginning with, first of all, the sort of an introductory passage that explains what the chapter is going to be about. And I thought I could read you, for instance, the introductory paragraph for the sugar moon, which is March's moon. She also includes what the moon is, what the sugar moon is called in the Ojibwe language, which is beautiful, and I would share that with you, but I can't pronounce that well, so I won't do that now. But every chapter opens with a beautiful paragraph like this, so I'll just read it to you. So again, this is March, the sugar moon, and the chapter opens, "Our third moon of creation is in March, when the snow begins to melt and the sweet maple tree sap begins to run. Maple syrup is a traditional medicine for Indigenous people, offered to us to balance our blood. We honor this medicine as a deep healing tonic. This moon asks us to reflect on the sweetness in our lives that flows to us through the words we speak to ourselves and the beliefs we hold about our worth. Unconditional love is an antidote to our inner critic, and this moon reminds us that compassion heals all. During this moon, we celebrate the spring equinox, creation begins to unfreeze and melt, and new life is born." So as you can see, it's just a beautiful synopsis of what is to follow in each chapter. And again, I'll let you know what follows in each chapter. So after that introductory paragraph, she shares a moon legend. So again, there's a different moon per month. Actually, there's 13 moons. Sometimes there's that extra moon in there. So a beautiful moon legend, which incorporates that storytelling that I was sharing with you. Then she moves into the animal spirit that best represents that particular month. So again, for March, the example is deer. Deer is the spirit animal for March. So she goes into a bit of an explanation around that spirit animal. And then I especially love how she shares 4 key messages per spirit animal. And then about a page and a half or so explaining further about each of those 4 key messages. And the reason why I love this is where it really gets practical, and she has different reflection questions sometimes that you can think about for yourself, and just different ideas that you can incorporate into your own life to benefit from the deer medicine, for example. So just quickly, the 4 messages of deer that she talks about is that you are perfect in your imperfections, you are lovable unconditionally, meet your mistakes with grace, and you are enough. So that's just an example of one animal spirit section. And I'm sure you can see just in those 4 messages alone how applicable that wisdom is to all of us. So that is a favorite part of mine, I think, is how she not only shares about the different moons and spirit animals, but offers those really concrete examples and ideas of how we can put these things to practice in our own life. From there, it moves into a third area, each chapter, which is the medicine journey. And so, in March, the example of the journey passage that she shares is around body compassion with deer. And so then there's a few more pages of insight around that. And then each chapter closes with the spirit animal invocation, a nice passage that you can read if you're particularly drawn to the message of that spirit animal. And then it closes with the moon affirmation. So in this case, a sugar moon affirmation. So again, I'm just telling you what the chapters look like because they're so beautiful, and it is such it's almost like a resource manual. Like if for instance you're wanting to read to yourself about meeting your mistakes with grace, you can just hop into that one section and get some of Asha's wisdom and insight to help yourself to do that. So in closing, I wanted to share a few more passages with you about some of my favorite things in this book. So I was going to share just one example of the storytelling that Asha does in the book. And she uses storytelling throughout in every chapter, definitely. So I picked out, this is the 8th moon legend, which is called How Blackberry Led the Way. So it's a beautiful story about the blackberry moon. So see if you can figure out why this resonated with me when I just read it the other day. So the legend goes, Blackberry was created in the early days where there was a lot of darkness and quiet. They had a lot of time to listen to their heart, to pay attention, and to reflect. As the earth began to fill with other plants and animals, Blackberry would watch the diverse and beautiful energies come to life. They watched otter learn to swim, dandelion seeds blow in the wind, and rainbow come after the storm. They were quieter than other aspects of creation, as they had learned to listen more than they spoke. They had lived for many moons and became the wise one that the plants and animals would come to when they needed guidance. Every time a being had a question, Blackberry would lead the questioner back to themselves and ask them, "What does your spirit say? How does your heart feel? What are your dreams telling you? How is the land informing you?" Some of the animals and plants would feel frustrated. All they wanted was for Blackberry to tell them the answers. Sometimes they even begged Blackberry to tell them what to do, but Blackberry stayed rooted in their knowing, trusting that all would reveal itself in time, with reflection and deep listening. With Blackberry modeling how to receive inner wisdom, all of creation began to practice this way of being, going within for their answers, listening to the guidance of the earth, and building their intuition and knowing. Every day they would close their eyes and invite the spirit world to inform them of their knowing. It was a powerful approach to living, and each aspect of creation became a sovereign being. Because there was less self-doubt, fighting, competition, and comparison ceased to exist. The world had become a beautiful place because of Blackberry, and one day the plants came to ask if they could make Blackberry the chief of the land. As they approached Blackberry with this request, they were met with a gentle and humble smile. "Dearest kin, you are all powerful in your own right. I stand beside you, not above you. If you would like to give back, all I ask is that you continue to trust in your connection to the spirit world. Your medicine wisdom is waiting to be awakened. Stand tall in the gifts Creator has given you and find your way of leading in this world. We all have a way. My job was to simply remind you of that." And from that day forward, all of creation walked beside one another, acknowledging the gifts they carried and valuing the beauty of one another. So I love I love this legend for lots of reasons, but the one that applies to you is this really reminds me of what coaching is all about. You know, your coach is your equal. It's not the expert, not your superior. A great coach is going to help elicit your own medicine and those true gifts within inside of you. And so I just really appreciate the way she has beautifully expressed that in this passage. So that's one example on how she shares her lessons and her wisdom through storytelling. And then the last passage that I'm going to share with you is an example of, I guess, the opposite of that, or when she's writing about those pertinent societal issues, like I mentioned, in a really practical, easy to understand way, so that you can take away the lessons and apply them in your own life. So this particular passage is, you know, on a more serious topic. It comes in the chapter that is talking about community, and just prior to this section, talking about, I've lost it here, what it was specifically called. The whole idea of appreciating, not appropriating, essentially, is what it was. So this little passage lit me up because to be honest, I'm always thinking about being an ally of Indigenous people versus an accomplice. And I first heard this from Jessie Wente, who she mentions in the book, but that doesn't matter. What matters is it meant something to her, and she has further explained it. So maybe this will expand your thinking about the difference between being an ally and accomplice. Allies and accomplices. This is from the 6th Strawberry Moon, is where she was sharing this information. So she writes, an ally in social justice spaces is defined as someone from a dominant or majority group who is working to end oppression by supporting marginalized communities. They acknowledge that they carry privilege and power, and they can use to educate others while also doing their own inequity and justice work. An accomplice, however, is defined as someone who takes steps to disrupt the harmful narrative of white supremacy while actively seeking solutions and acting on them, even if that means they lose social or other types of status or different levels of prestige. I have many allies and accomplices in my communities, and I am grateful for both. From a personal level, she writes, I can share the difference in how I've experienced those who walk in allyship and those who step forward as an accomplice. An ally will read articles I've shared and then share about what they are learning. They will buy dream catchers, medicines, and artwork from Indigenous creators, support their businesses, uplift their voices, and share their gifts. An accomplice moves into even more action. Accomplices get involved in their communities I share about, helping to raise money and offer support. They will put their own comfort on the line to assist those who don't have their basic needs met, giving up time, resources, or positions of power. The accomplices in my communities engage in conscious reflection, anti-racism work, and reciprocity often. Many in my community have become vocal supporters for my people. I can see how part of my purpose is to build diverse and inclusive communities of folks who journey with me to uncover the truth and move toward reconciliation together. The communities I build connect them to their own medicine, so instead of seeking and taking, they give back. Whew. So I love that because, like I mentioned, I'm on my own journey of healing and reconciliation, and so I am inspired to become even more of an ally and even more of an accomplice when I hear these two definitions and what they truly mean. So I hope that you enjoyed that passage and that it was a good example of the concrete information that Asha is able to share with us about real issues in Canada and really across the world. Okay, so to wrap things up here, I would like to let you know again that this is a brand new book and that is being released on March 15th, which is next week. So if this is sounding like a kind of a resource that you would love to have, I encourage you to either go on her website or hop on to a bookstore site or Amazon to order this book so that it arrives in the mail next week, right when it is released. And what else do I want to wrap up with? I guess just to conclude, the high hopes I had for this book, I feel Asha, delivered beyond my expectations. And again, as a white woman in Canada who adores nature, certainly I have awareness about a lot of these cultural practices that she shared, and also a very, very, it was very important to me that I'm not appropriating and that, I'm sharing what I love about nature in a culturally appropriate way. And so now I have this beautiful guide that can make sure that I'm doing that. So for these reasons and so many more, I hope that I've inspired you to pick up a copy of You Are the Medicine, because it's true, we are the medicine, as she writes as her final words in the book. I truly do believe we all have everything we need inside of us. And we are each special just because we are. And so this book, I feel, is really going to help all of us, learn to see that in ourselves even more and to express that even better out in the world. So that's what I had to share today. Again, in closing, I wish you a happy International Women's Day, whatever it is that you're doing today. I hope that you especially have time to appreciate yourself, maybe even first and foremost, and be proud of who you are and how you're showing up in the world. I'm proud of you, and I'm so glad to have you here in my community. So, Chi Miigwech, and I'll see you next week. Bye.